Welcome to the Mediate Your Life podcast. I'm your host, John Kenyon. On the show, I guide guests through challenges and conflicts in their personal and work lives, and in their experience of the larger social political world. The Mediate Your Life approach helps people bridge differences and heal divides using principles and processes based in empathic communication, a mediation framework, and mindfulness. Each conversation is a forum for learning and healing, not only for the guests, but also for the podcast listeners. In this episode, I continue my conversation with Nicole Gibson, the founder of Love Out Loud. In this part of the conversation, we take a deep, intimate dive into Nicole's experience with love and freedom in romantic relationship, exploring her path of self-love, authenticity, and embracing one's true self in the loving of another. We use the Mediate Your Life map of internal mediation to walk together through her transformative journey of radical honesty, vulnerability, and courageously opening to life's emergence. I hope you enjoy the episode. I like to frame things as conflict. So any challenge or difficulty in life, I like to look at what are the two sides, just finding two sides. And then the part of us that you actually have been speaking to, the part of us that is that higher part of truth and wisdom and love and compassion and freedom, that part of us can sort of bring that love and healing to different aspects of ourselves and others, right? Ourself in relation to others. And so what I have is these different maps, I call them, to navigate these different kinds of conflict that we can experience internally or externally. And so I like to hear you say a little bit about the situation, and then I'll try to come up with one or a few options of these processes that I like to guide people through that combines elements of my work. And so if that still sounds good to you, then would you like to say a little bit about what you the situation that we talked about that you want to work on together?
Yeah. So your prompt, John, was, what's a present conflict for you in your world? And in hearing that, the conflict I've been going through really for years, that's very, very personal to me, was the breakdown of a relationship and engagement specifically, but really never believing that either of us had fallen out of love with each other. And yet, we found ourselves in the circumstances that we did, and living in different countries, and reaching a point in my journey kind of many months after the separation where, as a result of not kind of moving on, finding myself more and more shut off from life and from connection and intimacy, which, as I'm sure you can appreciate from the story, is not how I've ever conducted my life. But being so deeply in love with someone and just not knowing what to do, and also being kind of relentless in my pursuit and belief of love, was deeply conflicting to know how to navigate that situation, because this is someone that I fought so hard for over the years, and made many mistakes too, but never gave up, never gave up. But not giving up kind of putting me in this holding pattern of waiting, and eventually getting to a point where I made a decision to be open to life and to kind of do my best to surrender all outcomes, and met someone that I love, deeply. But then still having this conflict be like alive in my life was never a situation that I felt I would be in, because on many levels I have had these conservative kind of ideas and values around what a relationship is. In other ways, completely unconventional. But in those ways, that felt conflicting. And so the journey has been very much about allowing myself to navigate every step of connection and intimacy with even a new level of authenticity that I had never experienced before, because that was the only way that I could manage those feelings inside of me. Like, I want to be close to you, and I want to put everything on the table, and also I'm still in love with someone else, and I don't know what to do about that, has taught me so much about so many things. To list a few, how much we actually can be loved in difficulty when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. That was, for me, that was new, because I
Mm.
think in relationship in particular, I had put pressure on myself a lot to kind of be the perfect partner. And the irony of putting pressure on myself in that a lot of the time was actually, that pressure accumulated a lot in circumstances where I felt unable to communicate, because the pressure that I would put myself was so intense, and then always feeling in relationships that I was misunderstood, not taken the right way. So this, I believe that part of the reason I had to manifest a situation like this was to kind of break out of this kind of rigid idea of what love and connection actually is, and to recognize that love itself is beyond the conditions of a relationship.
Mm.
It's been a test to put love above the attachment and the conditions of a relationship. And many moments through this journey where I really had to surrender, any control over outcomes, which is very scary when you
The
care about
control
someone.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was another lesson in that love is inclusive, and there's a way of conducting ourselves in love, which is, I'm going to keep my heart open to all that I love, and I'm going to clearly communicate where I'm at in every single moment, and someone else gets to decide what they want to do in that.
Mm. Mm.
Was definitely another level of challenge and risk, and actually intimacy for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So a lot there I'm hearing about love, and a very, like, the very intimate dimensions of love, and in romantic relationship, and love of yourself, and love of these other two people, and just that kind of love, and then how that relates to truth and honesty and freedom from ideas of what should be culturally, again, right? So in a microcosm, you've really been walking through the fires of some of this in such a intimate, personal way. Where do you feel that the conflict is now? It's like, so I think I'm hearing there's this new person that you feel that depth of love and connection, romantic connection, and yet there's still this attachment or connection to the previous, or the person you were with before that, and but that you decided you were going to separate. Is there a sense that you're in some kind of inner conflict about, or outer conflict with one or both of them? So can you say now, like in this moment, where do you still experience that there's a sense of, like, you haven't quite resolved a conflict around it?
Yeah, and the situation, I think, is resolving. But about a month ago, my ex fiance, she came to see me here in my home city, and that, I think, was the peak of needing to confront these new ways of navigating challenging situations, right? Because I had to have a conversation with the girl I was seeing. This is something that I really need to go into. Like, I need to do this for me, and to be received in that was amazing. Like, her response was actually, even if you had come to me and said, I don't want to do this, I would have encouraged you to do it, because I know how unresolved that is for you. And that was pretty groundbreaking, because it was like really being loved. I think a lot of people can say, yeah, I love you unconditionally, but it's those moments, I think,
Where
where,
it's really hard.
yeah, it's really hard. And what you want is in contention with what someone else maybe needs.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of selflessness. So the impact that conversation had on me, I mean, I chose to be radically authentic in that, and I was crying, like I was breaking my own heart in some ways, and feeling like I was breaking someone else's heart, and really needing for myself, after kind of a year and a half of feeling this pain in my heart and this heartbreak over this other person, wanting to meet her with no limitations or boundaries. And I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. I had no, well, I think we all have preconceptions, right? But I was actively doing the work to let go of that so that I could meet her in a space of presence and to see what naturally kind of emerged without control. And in choosing to do that, just the amount of layers of like, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this, like just judgment on myself, to release myself of those expectations, to sort of surrender it and to see what could transpire in that space was really like, it was a very, very, very profound experience. And the three of us actually ended up meeting, right? And for me, that was like the best way I could describe it was like a real life parts integration, like seeing two aspects of myself meeting that represented such different parts of me,
Mm-hmm.
and how they chose to relate to each other and what they made each other feel, and all of that was very kind of interesting. And in that, I had deep feelings of self-worth, challenge, because I was like, how could, to kind of be loved in that way, even for me, was like, I'm doing something wrong. Like, I really had to actively overcome that feeling of I'm doing something wrong here, which I did. I was able to reach a space where I was like, well, yeah, I love this way. I love beyond conditions. And I had just never held a standard in, romantic love, that I could be loved in that same way. So that was transformative. And I mean, there's so much to unpack in this.
Yeah, there's a lot there. These two people who love you as well as you loving them. And I'm not sure I totally got it, that there's something about your own kind of confrontation where we all maybe have places where we doubt our self-worth and value and lovability, and right, the places in all of us, those dark corners and place, right? And it sounds like this really brought that up with these two people representing what you said, in some ways like aspects of yourself. But is there something about being loved the way you're loved by them and how to process that?
Yeah, that was definitely one component. The other component was that, that being in a situation like that was just wrong, so
Oh, like it's not okay for that to even be happening in the first place.
totally. Like
Uh-huh.
the constraints of, traditional relationship
Ideas about relationship.
would
Yeah.
suggest that that shouldn't even be happening, right? Yeah, like I also want to be conscious to not, one person's biography can be another's betrayal, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not disclosing too much about their
Yeah.
experience in that, because that's not up to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I had to very much get to a place where I was like, I'm not going to control how this plays out, and I need to be willing to lose everything or be willing to gain everything, even if that meant, having my relationship with one of them transform into a friendship, or
Yeah.
both, or
Yeah.
to kind of be processing that actively, whereas usually I would only process that on my own and then communicate whatever decision I'd come to in that. But the opportunity to kind of lean into that level of authenticity and that vulnerability.
And not controlling, really letting the process do the work in a way, not having an outcome in mind that you're just driving to, but actually really being present moment to moment of whatever's going to unfold next if you show up with a lot of truth and honesty and love. And then just seeing what emerges out of that continual conversation between you. Yeah, but that takes it, like that's like a living of what you were talking about earlier
On a
of
very deep level, yeah.
right. Yeah. But the power, what can emerge if we create that kind of container, right? But it's so scary to let go of that much control in a way.
Totally. And to not feel responsible as well for, you know, other people's experience, to trust others enough to have their own experience. Because I think that the tendency many people, including myself, would have and did have in that situation was, I feel responsible for your experience. I feel responsible for your experience, rather than letting other people have their experience, which can include good experiences and, hard experiences, and conflicts, that there was very much an expectation on one side that I would have, complete distance from the other if I was to pursue a relationship. And it was actually very confronting for me that wasn't actually authentic, and that was crazy for me to reconcile. And it wasn't that I wanted to continue to see both people romantically, because that's actually, I am a monogamous person, so that wasn't an interest to me. But I felt like I wanted both of these people in my life in some way, and I felt like I had built the foundation of the relationship in a way where, that could be possible, that there was enough respect and there was enough communication, that for so many is beyond convention, right? And especially when I had fought for my ex, so relentlessly for so many years now, to be in this place where I was meeting that moment. And I've said consistently through our journey, I would do anything, you know, to be with you romantically and to make this relationship work, than to feel like shutting parts of myself off is actually not something I'm willing to do. Like, it feels like it comes at too great of a cost, and it feels like it starts to eat into my ability to be creative when I do that, because I see other potentials here that have nothing to do with infidelity or anything like that, but an openness, like really recognizing that the truth is there is love here for me in both directions, and I want to be free to allow that love to transform into new places and not have to cut parts of myself off. Was like, I was highly confronted by the fact that that's where I had landed, because I had, so desperately wanted to make things work.
Yeah, it just sounds like such a microcosm of your life's work and dedication to at the macro level as well. Yeah. So it might be, I think you said there's a sense that there's resolution has occurred. So whether it's maybe what it was in the last month, or maybe there's still remnants now. I'm thinking of these two processes. One is more, and I think I frame things in terms of mediation, like finding the part of us that can mediate, be the kind of mediator of empathy to different parts, and have those parts empathize with each other. So I can imagine, like, if there's, it sounds like maybe there was, I don't know if there still is, like a part of you that was choosing to be in this dynamic, and then a part of you that was saying, no, this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. This isn't okay. That place of needing self-compassion when it's hard to find that, when it's really challenging to get to self-compassion, right? So that voice of self-judgment and self-blame or whatever it is, and then the parts of us that are doing whatever we're doing that is right. So that sounds like maybe I don't know if still is applicable. And then there's another one that's more about the future, instead of, like, that's more of a focus on the past choices we've made, and part of us that's currently judging ourselves for that, versus like, how do we move forward in life? What direction do we take? And different parts of you that want to do different things. And it sounds like maybe that has gotten resolved a lot as well. But does either one, even if we have to go back in time a bit to sort of maybe harvest that and see how you did your way of doing that, but is any of that, either one of those feel one more relevant than the other?
I think both have relevance. I mean, through this process, I've had to do a lot of my own kind of like reference pointing, right? And to really, part of my journey has been putting myself in the shoes of everyone in that situation, even though at times that's been really painful to do.
Mm, mm,
But yeah, I mean, I think this is like my ex is someone that I saw my entire life with, and that doesn't just go away. There was a huge amount mag that drew us together, and again, that doesn't just disappear. But part of this process has been accepting that, you know, nothing is ultimately predestined beyond what we choose.
mm,
Free will also trump,
mm-hmm,
and life can throw us plot twists all the time.
mm, mm, mm,
The person that I have been seeing more recently, like she brings out sides of me that are completely unexpected, and so it's also been getting to know myself in new ways. And I think that the part of the irony of my process is realizing that we don't need to know all the answers, and which is very hard for me sometimes to just be on the journey. And if she chose to leave me tomorrow, to have enough self-love and love for her to trust that that would be the right decision, or maybe we're together for 50 years, or I don't know, maybe my ex and I get back together in a year's time. It's I'm done with trying to control what that looks like, and I'm more interested now in how is reality showing up for me now. As long as I'm being real with what I'm feeling, I'm choosing to put my trust more in what's showing up for me and who's showing up for me, and whether or not that's synergistic and harmonious to my life right now.
mm,
And then feeding that with gratitude and love and unconditionality as much as I can. So it's a very, very different process, especially because the relationship I had with my ex had this intense feeling of destiny.
mm,
So a lot of my mental and emotional involvement in the connection was thinking about the future all the
mm,
time.
mm, mm,
So that's been a lot of rewiring, a
mm.
lot.
Yeah, that's what's coming to me, like about the future versus the present, is like the map, as I call it. I'm thinking of, like, it sounds like there have been elements where you've been judging yourself or experiencing that sense of questioning is what's right and wrong and what's okay. But it's not seen, as I listen to you, what seems more, you said both are relevant, but that what seems more present as I hear you is this how does the future continue to unfold, but in a way you're not trying to control it much. You're trying to let it unfold and not know, be in the not knowing, and just kind of, yeah, trusting the process of how you're navigating kind of moment to moment this your love, the way that your love is expressing itself.
Hmm.
Does that sound right? Maybe that's what's a little more of the two that's a little more present in this moment.
Sure, yeah. Like my commitment to love beyond any particular relationship. Mm.
Yeah, love and freedom
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
honesty, right?
And trusting that I will end up, with the things that I want, which is actually a relationship and a family. And I think that's the tension, because to live this way, you've got to be willing to accept, well, maybe that won't happen.
Maybe that. Okay. So that gets into, maybe I'm just hearing maybe two parts in there of a part of you that has an image of love and family, but that's present, but it's also like a future image, but it's a desire that's living in you, and then there's another part or parts that are more about not being too attached to a certain future or something like that.
Not
Yeah.
idealizing it, not controlling the way that it happens.
Right. Right. So the way this process works is, if you're willing to do it for a few minutes with me, is finding the part of you that, if I can imagine, there could be multiple, like not just two, but it could be many, that around this, and just finding kind of the one voice in you in this moment that most wants to be heard. And it's probably, you've been speaking to different elements of this, but like if we just sort of really clear the space internally for you, for a voice to kind of step forward and be heard in a kind of more formal way by me and by you, right? That you kind of give voice to some part of you around this that maybe doesn't feel as heard as it would like yet, or just in this moment wants to be heard particularly kind of strong. And then we can hear from another voice too, and if wherever there might be a bit of a conflict with the first one, but right in the moment, you don't need to even know what that second one will be, just the first one, that we could just give a little bit of deep listening to and connect with some feelings and some needs around that part of you. So if you sort of tune in, if you're willing to go with me in that, just kind of like quieting and tuning in, and what is that part of you, the voice in you that would like to be heard first?
Yeah, I think the voice that wants to be heard is always the one that's well, often it's the one that's still holding the most pain, right? And I think in this situation, it's the part of me that's like, hey, everything that you said you wanted showed up on your doorstep, and you didn't just take it. Did you fuck up? Did you just, so much of us, me, had been manifesting and fighting for this to occur. What do you
The
think?
the
What do you think
relationship with
with my
your
ex? Yeah,
ex.
yeah, and my commitment and the commitment of my word to love her through good and bad and better and worse. And that then brings into question, like, what does love mean, and how she needed to be loved in this situation was different to how I needed to be loved. And it was not only different, but it was kind of polar opposite. How to reconcile that. And would that actually have been too much of a sacrifice? Or if I had just said, I'm going to do whatever it takes, and I'm going to, shut out everything that you need me to shut out in my life, and we're going to figure this out together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would that have been different, or would it have created a pattern of consistently never meeting her expectation, you know?
Right. There are reasons why you decided not to be together, and you took the path you took. And yet the voice that just spoke was something like, well, she represents in a way everything that you said you wanted in a relationship. And you made these kind of vows to one another. And this part of you sort of saying, you know, you 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 walked away from this thing that maybe that you wanted, that this part of you is saying, this is the kind of relationship you wanted, or we wanted, or I wanted. And but the voice is kind of saying, but you let it go. You didn't do whatever it took to stay with it. Is that it? Is that the voice?
Well, I was, until she came back, and then she said, this is what I would need. And I wasn't willing to give that.
So is the part of you that spoke, was it saying though, but you should have been willing to
Yeah,
take that,
like what?
because this is what you want, this is the kind of relationship you want, this is the person that you thought most embodied this, what you want in life, and the kind of uh uh partnership life you wanted.
Exactly. It was just like it felt like the most irony one could possibly experience, that I had sacrificed so much of myself to even create a situation where we could potentially work on our relationship and reconcile things. And I've given to that idea, that possibility, for years. And then it shows up at my door. And the irony of how much that journey has changed me, and how tired I've become, I guess, of sacrificing parts of me to try to win
To
her
fit
back.
into something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to try to win her back and be enough, for her. then when she was there saying, I want it all with you, I want a family with you, I want a future with you, and this is what I would need in order for that to happen. It's like, and this is what I would need, like those conditions after what I felt I had given, and her questioning of, well, if you can't give these things to me, how committed are you? When I feel like I've never stopped being committed. I've never stopped considering her, and she chose to end the relationship. So it was kind of, she had in some ways the power in that. I had to fight to find my power again through that journey, and the irony of kind of being confronted with that finally, but then to feel like what I would need is for you to say, I want to work on this with you, and whatever's in your life as a result of our separation, I'm going to give grace and space to that, because life's complicated, and I'm not gonna control the way that is for you. That's what I needed.
That's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So one way to empathize with this part of you would be to connect with the longings there. And it sounds like I heard you say family a few times. There's something about creating family and a certain kind of partnership where there's family, and in terms of what the part of you that really maybe wanted to stay with that, and just do and be willing to compromise something in order to have that, something like that. What needs would that meet for you? Would that part of you looking to meet for you, like that part of you representing or holding the energy of certain needs? And it sounds like one of them being like family, but is there more? Like what is that part of you trying to do for you, the needs it's trying to meet for you, that this person represented as in relationship?
I guess security.
Security.
Security, and also just being so in love with someone and seeing that with them, and then feeling so scared that maybe they would create that with someone else. Like that was, in our separation, always a very deep fear that I had. Very difficult to reconcile fear, because for me it felt so permanent. If one of us made a decision like that, then, and I know life carries on. You have kids, your life doesn't, it's not a jail sentence. But for me, the complexity that would come if we ever chose to be together after a step like that had been taken with a different partner felt very challenging. But again, it's a future projection. We have no idea how life is going to unfold. But to speak to kind of that part of me, its fears, and the thing that it was, that I was very conscious to not allow these fears of what could happen in the future be the thing that guided the decision that was authentic for me in the moment, which took a huge amount of trust, because choosing to say, I love you and I'm open to this and I want to continue to work on this connection, but I cannot pretend like the last year and a half didn't happen. I can't deny the pain that I've been through. I can't reject someone that's come into my life who's loved me authentically and unconditionally, because we're now choosing to work on our relationship. It's not, I don't feel that that's fair or reasonable. And I'm happy to work on transforming this relationship that I have with this other person to a space that's, respectful and works. But I don't want to have to draw these hard lines when in my heart that's not how I feel. I don't want to be forced to put these really radical boundaries in place when I don't feel like I'm needing to protect myself from anything in this. That she felt like she needed that protection, but it made me feel very unseen because of the level of investment that I've had in the relationship, to not feel, believed in or trusted was just like, I don't know what to do in that. I don't know how else to show you how willing I've been to make this work.
Yeah. So to be seen, I'm hearing to be seen and trusted. And you said security a little bit back. Um, and a certain depth of love,
Yeah, synchronicities and magic,
synchronicities and magic.
especially when we first met, like the story we have, and as a storyteller, sort of a deep reverence and attachment to the story that we've had, and what our relationship catalyzed both of us into. It's felt harder to be with like the mundane aspects of a relationship after experiencing that.
Okay, so it's like when with this person, there's an enchanted quality of life, a magical enchanted, the synchronicities and the way life doesn't feel just mundane, but it feels like yeah, magical. So that need, maybe there's this need around security and family and stability and a intensity of love, but that I'm also like, it in a way, this the story of the two of you is it's just this sense of like how life can feel so magical and enchanted and synchronistic, and that's power, those powerful needs. This part of you is like wanting to support, yeah, wanting to try to help you meet those, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and the fear that when something feels again predestined, that you're messing it up by choosing against it,
Right.
and how to discern, because what the space I find myself in now, and what I'm still integrating, is this feeling of moving into a chapter of my life where I no longer feel this intense, and through my story, you've probably heard it, this intense feeling of being called to something. I feel like that's changing for me, and that actually the decisions I've had to make in this situation around
To be able to keep
love.
following that
Well,
call, is that
no,
right?
to actually to move into a chapter where life feels more about what I choose, and whatever I choose is the right thing. Which is a very different place of guidance to what I've experienced in my life so far. Not feeling like you can actually get it wrong. That maybe the energy in me that was pulling me towards things.
Yeah.
These were aspects of myself that I had to deeply reconcile. And could I now be in a chapter of my life where my parts are integrated enough, where there's an even greater sense of freedom, which is, once upon a time, freedom felt like following that calling. Whereas what I feel like life's trying to help me transition into now is infinite possibilities. You can choose anything, and it's the right thing.
Mm. Mm.
To not be restricted
To
in
not be
that.
restricted,
Mm.
that there's something about, in every moment there's this power to choose something, and not just being lost, even a sense of calling in a particular, like,
Could be a trap.
could be this getting kind of closed down into something where your commitment more and more is, every moment there's like all this expansive possibility you can choose from, and almost there's something about how you're living into that,
Mm.
um, which
Yeah.
might be maybe another aspect of you that is speaking to this in terms of this first voice, or this first part. Is it but there is that part of you something like those needs around the magic and the um of life, and being with a person where that really comes out, where you really experience that way of being in the world, and some security and family, sense of family around it. In this moment, how do you feel when you connect to that part of you? Like, what are the emotions? If we had your technology, we could use that too, but what
Yeah.
what emotions are there when you sort of tune into this first part of you?
There's still parts of me in this situation that are still actively reconciling. But there have also been massive emotional shifts and changes around how I perceive certain things. And before, it felt like there was one path. It felt like there was one path, and if I wasn't on that path, I was getting it wrong.
Mm.
And my ex was that for me. You know, that's that was very much how I related to our story for many years. And I felt that that was the only way that I was going to be able to reach, I guess. Part of me believed that relationship was unanimous with reaching my potential.
With reaching your potential. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we could unpack why, and what about our experience kind of led to that feeling.
But that's what that represents for you. Yeah, the relationship and the person and what came out for you is something about the support to really reach your potential, full potential or
that
something.
our dynamic, because it challenged me so much, right?
Mm,
The
mm.
dynamic challenged me so deeply, and I transformed so much, largely in a pursuit to get the relationship to where I wanted it to be. And I guess the differences, the emotional changes, are I have less of that sense emotionally that I need something to be so harsh at times, in order to reach that potential. I guess the question of my sense of capacity to achieve my potential, from a different place, from a place that there's ease and infinite choice, in all moments, and that you can't really get it wrong. Can I trust my awareness and my consciousness enough and my capability enough that no matter what I chose, I'm still going to get there in one way or another. And I think that that's ultimately what I became confronted with, that she needed certain boxes around how things needed to be. And I had done so much development on myself, ironically, largely inspired for the
By the
relationship.
relationship. Yeah.
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 That got me to a place where I was like, I don't want to box myself in, you know,
Yeah.
in any way. And if this is your condition, this is breaking my heart, but I choose me.
Yeah. And that sounds like the other side of this conversation within you, that again, that radical freedom part that we've been speaking about all the way through, in a way, as a through line for you, and a commitment. It's such a deep commitment
Mhm.
to that, even in this place where there's
This was the
incredible,
ultimate test of that
the
for me.
ultimate test, yeah, of this kind of deep connection, intimate love, um,
Yeah, love of my life.
love of your life. Yeah. Yeah. And so this voice that feels like your mission in life, right? One of the, maybe do you feel like, in a way, almost like the thing the biggest gift you want to give to the whole world is something about how we human beings can evolve into greater freedom.
That's it. And like the pain, the grief, that the experience of the love of my life would show up in a way that was in contention with that, was like very hard to reconcile. And yet, the other person in this situation was loving me like that.
Mm.
So that love is actually always there. But when we marry it to such a specific set of circumstances, I think we can stop seeing the way that love really does show up for us generally, in life all the time, that it's never actually missing. But sometimes we can't see it because we're fixated on wanting it to show up in a particular way.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I heard that there's been a lot of grief, a depth of grief and pain, and holding this conversation, and finding a way to integrate, right, that this part of you that is so incredibly committed to freedom, and that, I don't know, if you how would you sum up the first part? Is it is it something about stable, like something stable to balance out the freedom? Or is it you said love, like love can be all around us in lots of different ways versus a specific person, a specific way.
No,
But that,
it was the belief, right? It was the belief that we were meant to be together.
hmm.
And because love is my highest value, love and freedom, I think, would probably be on par.
So does it feel like it's love and freedom and been in conversation around this, like trying to find a way to,
Yeah, my
yeah.
my ultimate belief in love, like I would die for love, right? So there's no length that I wouldn't go to
Hmm.
for love. Uh, where it became challenging is in her mind. She was like, "Well, if you love me, you will make these, these changes and these sacrifices." And I took that on until a point in my development where I was like, "Well, actually, I love you even when I'm open to the other love in my life. So that's not mine. I love you the same. And I love you inclusively, and that love doesn't change. Anything else that I have in my world does not change the love I feel for you. And to love you in a way that's free, I have to stay true to that understanding,
Mm-hmm.
even though you don't feel like I'm loving you in that. And that was
Mm.
hard, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm hearing how hard that's been.
yeah,
Yeah. So okay, so and again, it sounds like there's been so much you've been working on this in the past month, and especially in this moment as we're talking about it, and really like again, as the awareness of you and me really kind of tuning into this the part of you that's holding love and the part of you that's holding freedom, and how in this context of these two people really that are so meaningful in your life, how you've been playing out, like what does it mean to hold them together
yeah.
almost like equally. Yeah. Is there any insight you're getting in this moment, or a request of yourself, or maybe before you don't go there quite actually, do you have a sense that both, if we think of it in terms of parts of you, and that, there's also this integration and wholeness, but if you think of it as like an aspect of you that's really holding the part about love and your commitment to love, and then a kind of a separate aspect of you that's really holding this dimension for freedom, do you have a sense those two are empathically connected to each other, or is there any sense they're at odds with each other?
I think this situation they were,
They were,
yes.
but now you feel they're more.
Well, it's a very new way of being in the world. I mean, I lived with these two ideas married in every other aspect of my life, really. Like, I never felt constrained about what my friends think or what society thinks, or, like love. And I stood up to my family very young. Like, I didn't have those constraints. But I think the last domain of my sort of journey in this was, to be deeply loved by a partner, and to be able to have all the things that I want, which really are traditional in a lot of senses, to love one person for a very long time, and to have a healthy and beautiful family, and to have you know both of us present in that process, and all of that. I think the final layers of the idea that I could have that and feel completely free, and to have my decision to be with that person be my genuine decision, not the word of, well, we're in a committed monogamous relationship, therefore I'm choosing it because of that, but rather like, I choose you because I choose you, and I'm making all the other decisions in my life of my own accord, and they just so happen to support the the commitment and the monogamy in our relationship, because that's authentic to me. To not need to have these guardrails to create security and safety
Mm,
that would ultimately kind of bring into question how much trust and how much reciprocity there truly was in our relationship. Like, to really feel like I can be free enough in my love for someone else and they be free enough in their love for me that we can talk about anything and everything, that the natural impulse we have in our own life is one that supports the relationship. And if it doesn't, then we can talk about that, and there's a deeper curiosity to understand one another than there is to be at odds with each other. That felt like really hard to achieve, because I know that I can love like that, but to believe that I could be loved like that, that in every sense of the word, my partner could be my best friend and care about my well-being more than any of these other ideas around what we should be getting from a relationship, and to be open-minded, to be open-minded enough to, I think life's long, and I've given a lot of thought, because of my commitment to love, to what it would take in general, but specifically for me, to be with someone for 50 plus years, right? Because I'd love to be able to create that with someone. But what that would take is a sense that I'm not constrained. Because as soon as I start to feel constrained, that relationship's already on a path to destruction for me. I'm going to start to do things that will sabotage the relationship, because I don't like feeling that. But then applying that in a dynamic where there's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of love and, a desire for security and a lot of rules that society had put around monogamy, to trust that I could build a relationship with someone where we're able to put all of that on the table and say, hey, this is where I'm at, and these are the parts of me that want to run away, and these are the parts of me that are thinking this, and this is me right now. What do you say? What does that bring up for you? And to figure that out together is a relationship I want to have. But it's taken a lot of work to get myself to a place where I know that I can have that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to try to harvest this a little bit with you, and then we can start to wrap up for today. But as a kind of heading there, if you again, like, look inside of you, and do you have a sense, can be an interesting, like, look at these parts, is that they are empathetic with each other? Like, is the freedom part of you empathetic with this part of you wants love, and maybe love in certain ways that have some securities around it, and certain possible, things like family and things. So is there a sense that the freedom in you really has deep empathy for the love part of you that's doing that, and that the love aspect is having a lot of empathy for how important the freedom is? Do you have a sense that those two aspects of you are really empathically attuned to each other within you? Sounds like a strange question, but do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Yeah, now they're starting to believe, because the conflict came from not believing that they could coexist, right? So starting to believe that they can coexist in every aspect of my life, including
This
relationship.
place. Yeah.
Now they have a very different dialogue with each other, and I have a strength, because I think the question I've had to ask myself in this, right, is what belief and, what would I have to, where would I have to be with myself to trust that I can create circumstances in my life, in all domains of life, where these two ideas can simultaneously exist? And what it came down to actually was trusting that I can choose myself no matter what, that I can do what's right for me no matter what, even when that's really hard. That I'm not going to feel responsible for my partner's, journey, or whoever's journey, to the point that disables me, that debilitates my ability to actually show up authentically in the relationship, because that doesn't help anyone, right? But I think a lot of people in relationships are in that dynamic in one way or another. So I had to grow to the place that my commitment to myself, my commitment to my own self-love and my own freedom was greater than any temptation, right? And my ex was the ultimate represent
Ultimate
like
temptation. Yeah.
she was the ultimate temptation to lose myself.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So, you know, that that's where I had to get to, and I did make, that was the choice I made, you know, and she was free to choose what she was going to choose in that, but I had to choose
Mm,
me, and
yeah.
she had to choose her. You know, if you were
Yeah.
interviewing her, she would say the same thing, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've made that choice, you know, I'm acclimatizing to what life on the other side of that
Of that
is.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hearing that when you say trusting yourself, that it's what we've just been doing, that way you listen to these two needs, these two aspects of you, and out of that inner conversation within you, trusting the choice that comes out of that moment to moment to moment,
Yeah. Pretty much.
and trusting that is a way to live that feels most in integrity for you. And yeah.
That integrity actually has to exist from that place, because, you know, life is not stagnant. Like, whatever preconception we have, the future's not set, you know, and it's to nature is spontaneous, and nature delivers, you know, in the moment that it's required. It's the human that looks at the drought and worries that rain's never going to come again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nature knows its cycles. It trusts that it's going to be delivered in the moment that it's most needed. To live like that, I believe, is the scariest place for any human to be, and it it reaps the richest reward. Life is short, you know, to go back to the beginning of this conversation. At a young age, I was confronted with just how short life could be.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of that is the this present moment is infinite. You know, that's true eternity, true immortality, or the experience of what that feels like is to be completely alive in this moment. And I want to live my life that way, because for all I know, I could die next year, you know. So what I've realized in my path, and what this situation has reinforced on an even deeper level, is if we have any of these rules, any of these ideas, any of these conditions or preoccupations or ways that we believe our life should go,
Mm.
we take away our ability to be spontaneous in this moment. And
Mm.
how amazing would it be to have a love story where you live spontaneously in every single moment, and they just happen to continually show up in
Mm.
that, you know, and that it's a dynamic where there's constant surprise and delight and newness, you know. To me, that the risk of potentially losing someone, the opportunity to have that with someone and to live a life that's like that, you know, you could apply the same thing to career direction or taking risks
Mm-hmm.
in your art. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to have that experience where life blows my mind and I'm completely in awe. And, you know, there are moments every day where I'm like, I didn't even know I could be that lucky. I didn't even know that I could
Mm.
be that loved. To me,
Mm.
it's worth the risk, because it comes with the down as well. You
Yeah.
know, it comes with the loss, and it comes with the
Yeah.
grief, and it comes with the
Yeah.
pain. But I know that when I try to kind of tape my way, you know, into safety, and I'm not on those edges of what's really possible in the human experience, there's a dullness. You know, my creativity isn't as bright. My flow isn't as brilliant, you know. And I think when we choose to, let's use the term, like, medicate ourselves away from that true aliveness, um, to me that cost is too great, you know, because this life is precious.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful to me, what you're saying, and how this story crystallizes kind of all the things you talked about of your larger journey. And the way I'm hearing it is this conversation between freedom and love, and along with love can go a sense of safety and security and all that, like, and that you're choosing to not have one be higher than the other, but really holding them totally, as much as possible, equally. And the tension of that equality, is it can be incredibly difficult, and yet the aliveness of that and what that opens in your life, and how just you giving me and giving us listening a sense of how to live that, really, in a way.
And true love is free. Like, this is the thing. It's like, if you're experiencing these things just like I was, at odds with each other, what it actually indicates is you haven't.
They actually are integral to each other.
Yeah, what you think is love probably isn't love, and that's fine. But I think, we do have a way to go, I think, as a society, in understanding what love actually is, which is an integration of self to a place of wholeness where you're one with all things. So these perceptions, right, of needing to choose this over that, when you're really in a state of love, that dissolves. And that's why it's free, because in that space you can choose anything, and that's okay.
I'm very moved, and that's the love out loud. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Nicole, thank you. Is there anything else about that you didn't say around that, or about anything that we've talked about that you want to say before we end? Is there anything else?
No, I think it's been a great conversation, and thank you for facilitating it. And I really hope that your listeners were able to take something away that they can genuinely and meaningfully apply in their world.
I'm very confident about that happening. And it's really amazing to me too, like you have a certain language that you use to talk about these things in your life experience and the way your work has evolved, the Love Out Loud work, and yet it's so parallel in so many ways to kind of my roots and traditions, and the work that I do and that I'm connected with. So just seeing all those parallels, and just a whole fresh people who maybe know my work and know this, right? That you've really said so many principles that are part of it, but in such a fresh way, and such a, like, from out of your story and your life experience, that I'm guessing it's going to be very, very valuable for people. And that we got to do a little of that inner mediation with you, and really, but to also see how that then applied back to the larger themes of your life's work. And I'm just super grateful. This was so fun. I've so enjoyed your willingness to be vulnerable and open, and to share that love and truth, and
Thank you.
the power of that. So thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you, John.
Really grateful.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to the Mediate Your Life podcast, and follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram at John Kenyon. You can also download the Mediate Your Life app to practice these principles in your own life. With love, empathy, and care, I'm John Kenyon. Thank you for listening.